So anyway, he kept shouting at these guys to get back up, I suppose, and so then I had a Tommy gun with me. I dropped it when I picked up this nice BAR, and I picked that thing up, and I had a couple of clips, and I went around giving those guys a dose of that. And when that was gone, this loudmouth was still yelling down below, and so these grenades we had were nice Aussie milled bombs, they called them. They make a heck of a racket when they went off. And they're a joy to throw because you could heave one and it sounded like it blew up half of the countryside. And so I wound up, and what I tried for was a tree burst, see, because when you hear a grenade hit closer, you fall down and roll a little bit, and usually it won't hurt you much. And so I didn't want those guys down there ducking the grenade, so I threw this thing as high as I could, hoping it would come down and land on this dude with a big voice. And he heard the handle go off. See, when you turn them loose, the handle flies off, it makes a little clang, and so I could hear from the sound of his voice, he'd go, like that, you know, and telling them, look out, there's a grenade coming, and then you could hear it hit the tree limbs. There's some trees left down below. All the rest shot off above them. And so that gave me a little better idea. The next one I threw to the left. I had an area down there, I figured where these guys are all in and what I'd run off the hill. And I wanted to hurt as many of them as I could, and maybe they'd leave. And I was the only reserve in the company. It was just me to be a reserve. I had nobody else I could call on to come up and give me a hand. So anyway, I sling up the next grenade, and then I waited just about time I figured it was exploding, I threw another one. And he didn't hear the handle come off. He was still yelling stuff, but pretty quick, I started throwing grenades to right, left, here. I had about 8 or 9 grenades. Some of these guys had left and a couple had walked with me. And in the process, I shut him up. I didn't hear that dude anymore. And I thought I'd had it made. I thought I'd won. And then all of a sudden, here comes a good jab grenade. Now, their grenades, the way they set them off, they don't have a handle or anything. They bang a little end against their helmet, and then it would start sparkling. At night, you could see the sparkles off of it. So way down below, I saw this sparkling coming at me. So I lay down one time, I laid down right quick, I rolled, and went all of a sudden down a little ravine. I didn't know that ravine was there. And that's what these 2 guys, or 4 guys that were supposed to be holding this was supposed to be guarding, that little ravine. I all of a sudden realized that, and this thing had a little grassy slope and it was slippery, and it's like my feet went over the brink. I was happy to get down away from the grenade, but all of a sudden I realized I was sliding, and then I banged into 2 guys trying to climb up, I thought. And so I kind of landed on one, and the other guy was alongside of me. And so the only weapon I had left, we all carried a short bayonet that they issued us when we got our new rifle. And we used it as kind of a can opener and this and that. And so I jerked it out and stuck it in this guy, and he went out yelling and hollering and got my bayonet with him. He's hanging up in his clothes. And so then I rolled off that guy, and this guy here is kind of like sitting here. So I didn't have anything else. So I took off my helmet, I gave him a big whap in the face with it, and he went down the hill. And then I crawled back up on top of the hill, and I was up there and nothing to use for a weapon anymore. And I listened, trying to see if these guys had gone. And it sounded to me like they were either going or leaving, and I couldn't hear the loudmouth anymore. So I figured I got that character. And so just in kind of a fit of spite, I took off my helmet, wound it up with a helmet, threw it down this little ravine just in case anybody else had idea climbing up, and I could hear it go skittering down there and never hit anything, so I figured, I'll be darned, I did it. I run them off. And so I waited a little bit. I went over to the position that were still there to the right, and I told those people, I said, look, there's nobody over here where they're supposed to be. You guys keep an eye on that. I'll go get some people to put in. I'll go tell these other guys on the left So I went to that position, told them the same thing. And then I went over to where there was a lieutenant sheriff named Sheriff. And he was responsible for this area. I went down to him, and he looked at me kind of like I was a ghost, and I said, I probably looked like I was pretty wild by that time. And I got close enough he could see me, and I told him, Lieutenant Sheriff, you haven't got any more people in the 2 positions there up there. You better get somebody up there before I'd run these nips off, but there might be some more come. So I waited till he got a couple of guys up, and then I went back, and it was all over. And that's the last I knew about it. The next morning, I was kind of a little bit, might say, shook up a little bit for what I kind of went through. After I thought it over, I thought, this is pretty stupid. I did a lot of ridiculous things that night. I walked up and shooting right down into these guys, which they were like from here to there, from me. And when you're down looking up even in the night sky, you can see somebody. This BAR was flashing when I fired it. That's bad, you know, they could have shot me. And they should have thrown a lot more grenades at me than they did, but they didn't. But anyway, I think I really hit them hard, drove them off. And if they'd have got into our position, the thing I knew, I couldn't let them in. If they'd have got a toehold in there like they were trying to get, they'd apparently found that weak point. And loudmouth, they got his group in there, they'd have got more right quick off the hill. And our unit would have been wiped out. We might have, few of us got away, and we'd have lost that beautiful observation post where we could lambast the daylights out of these guys up there and do more damage to them than all these other units trying to fight their way up. And finally, sometime a little bit later, they came in with bombers, and they turned every bit of weaponry we had on those hills and kind of blew the peninsula all the heck. And then we finally took the peninsula and got their naval base. And that's about what happened to me that night. I was a little bit more adventurous then than I am now. I thought back later that I wondered what I could have done better, but I think I lucked out. I think I did exactly what it took to drive those guys off. And then I'd think about, there were a lot of Japanese coming up that thing. You know, I wouldn't go trying to attack somebody's perimeter with 2 or 3 guys. I would take at least a good platoon or something like that, you know, 15, 20, 30 guys. I think that guy had that many too. I kept thinking, I did that to them. That's pretty good, you know. So I never got a chance to do something like that bad again, but I went on to put in 2 more or 3 more campaigns in New Guinea before the war was over. But I always kind of thought back on that I had a very lucky night, and so did my outfit. That's about all I got to say.
I think just an aspect of the story that you just heard, I mean, getting to hear it when you're sitting one-on-one with Mr. DeWitt is very powerful. I mean, when he talked about bullets going over his head and everything, and just thinking, you know what, I'm not going to live, so I'm going to make sure I protect everybody here and stuff at the time. So, and he's got some great news articles and stuff that we will get to you. He was named the Helmet Hero and different things like that, so for what he did. And so he's got lots of stories. We got some videos that have been done by the World War II Museum that they've put together, and I kind of teased him because we have actually Bob Maxwell, who is a Medal of Honor winner that's here in the state as well. But when I was a kid growing up, I used to love Audie Murphy, and he was kind of my hero at one point. And now after hearing Leonard's story, to me that should be the movie that's made, and he's kind of taken Audie's place because after I got older and learned everything about Audie, he had suffered from a lot of things that we have to deal with in the veterans community, so that weren't recognized back then. So,
well, thank you for bringing this memorial to us, Representative. And Mr. DeWitt, thank you for coming today. We don't get to hear stories like this in our committee very often. And we're glad to have this opportunity to recognize you. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Oh, do we have a question? Yes, Representative Hicks.
So, Mr. DeWitt, thank you so much, sir, for not only your service, but also for giving us this opportunity to recognize it. I know that even when you're doing these acts and in the many decades that have followed, you're not seeking personal glory, nor in coming and appearing here today on behalf of this memorial, but it does give us an opportunity on behalf of the citizens of the state of Oregon to say thank you to you. And so that's the value of this memorial, truly, is nothing to you, sir, personally, but really to the citizens of the state of Oregon. It gives us a chance to say thank you, and for that, I appreciate your coming here and sharing your story.
Thank you, Representative. I'll close the public hearing on HJM 17, open a work session on HJM 17.
Mr. Chair, I move HJM 17 to the floor with a B adopted recommendation.
Representative Hoyle moves HJM 17 to the floor with the B adopted recommendation. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? If not, the motion passes. Representative Widener will carry this for us on the floor. Again, thank you very much for being here today so we can do this for you. Thank you.
I will try to be as colorful as Mr. DeWitt when I carry this.